Gets you talking. Mondays to Thursdays between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m.
The platform. Step up and speak out.
You tune into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. It's a Monday and it is just gone past half past the hour of 7 o'clock. And just to remind you of some of the frequencies you can listen to us on this evening's The Platform. Chivu 99.8, Kama TV Wange 105.1, Mutora Shanga 97.6, Gweru 104.3, Bulawayo 106.7. That's my hometown, and we're broadcasting out of Harare, where our frequency is 106.4. Listen to us over the internet. It's www.zfmstereo.co.zw, and follow the conversation on Twitter at ZFM Stereo, on Facebook, facebook.com/ZFM Stereo, Instagram, that is at ZFM Stereo ZW. So the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, retired Lieutenant General S.B. Moyo, has summoned all the country's ambassadors from their different positions worldwide for a reorientation week. The ambassadors are stationed in Mount Hampton. This morning, the minister addressed the ambassadors in the country's new foreign trajectory, and we in this over the next hour will be playing that address in full. Is ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town.
News, lifestyle, charts, live radio, station highlights, and much more. Get it all on zfmstereo.co.zw.
Allow me to acknowledge and express appreciation, obviously, to the United Nations Development Programme for rendering support to the ministry, particularly to organize this important workshop. It was through the UNDP's assistance that it has been made possible, particularly at this moment of the year when the Financial Act has not yet been passed, but we've managed to have this workshop underway. As you are aware, UNDP is a key development partner and historically has augmented government's efforts in various economic and social endeavors. Ambassadors, this workshop would not have come at a more opportune time, as it enables us to exchange perspectives of the new refinements to our foreign policy, its framework and its thrust, as enunciated by His Excellency the President at his inauguration last November. Nevertheless, our foreign policy remains firmly anchored to our nation, regional and continental cardinal positions, principally being the Pan-Africanist in outlook. My address will therefore attempt to spider out to various agendas of interest which will steer your thrust as you execute your mandate at the varied postings. Equally important to Harare, it provides you a platform to raise pertinent issues from your host countries that the government ought to give attention to, particularly in seeking mutually beneficial relationships. The workshop also serves as occasion for open and frank discussions on key government policy issues that seek to advance our country's developmental agenda and enhance its image across the globe. It is our ardent hope that at the end of this workshop, you will be adequately armed to promote and, if need be, to defend those policies at your stations abroad. Ambassadors, the country has had its challenges and still faces these challenges, and it is trying to extricate itself out of these challenges. And as you are aware, you have come home at a time of high expectations, when all Zimbabweans are yearning for tangible improvement in their lives and the general well-being. They are rightly demanding that government should solve the myriad of challenges facing the country and also resuscitate the deteriorating economy without delay. They are agitating for improved service delivery within the social service sector, encompassing health, education, water and sanitation. Palpable results are a must in this regard. Climate change with its vicissitudes has placed havoc with our people's livelihoods, thus accentuating their poverty and exacerbating their fragile food security. Government is therefore dedicated to be result-oriented, and its thrust in each and every organ is aiming at that particular style. Indeed, government is working assiduously to address these challenges with a view to mitigating their impact on our citizenry. We believe that while our country faces numerous challenges, its positive attributes, including human capital, abundant natural resources, and favorable geographical location, far outweigh these. Government aspires to achieve sustained economic growth, which in the long term should culminate in sustainable economic development. There is an urgent need to achieve inclusive economic growth that will lead to generation of decent jobs for all, affordable and reliable energy, food security, sustainable agriculture, and development of reliable modern agriculture. In addition, government is determined to address the expectations of our people across the political divide, who spontaneously and collectively demanded change and gave birth to the new era in November last year. As our ambassadors, you will have a role to contribute meaningfully to the government efforts. It was a spontaneous reaction of the people of Zimbabwe. I know this is normally a question which you are going to be facing. And I repeat it. It was not a military takeover. It was a reaction of all institutions of the state. The strong institutions led by the military, the people themselves who demanded change, the parliament, the political party which was ZANU-PF, and including the judiciary, who then ruled after the human rights lawyers petitioned the superior courts on whether this matter was constitutional or not constitutional. And therefore, this was then ruled as compliant to the Constitution. So it is not, and it was never a military takeover, but was a spontaneous reaction by the people of Zimbabwe. Ambassadors, therefore, our people's peaceful nature was put on full display during the recent political transition period. And this positive trait has been applauded throughout the world. SADC has embraced this transition or peaceful transition. The AU recently has embraced this peaceful transition. And therefore, there is full legitimacy of this current government to complete the current term of office. Therefore, embedded within our national interests, matrix are issues of unity, peace and security, progress and prosperity for all Zimbabweans in a peaceful country. Ambassadors, the key barometer which is going to be putting this nation to test is delivering an election which is to be free and fair. But as you are aware, we are scheduled to hold our harmonized elections sometime mid-year. And this is a critical milestone and benchmark. Since his inauguration last year, His Excellency the President, Comrade E. D. Mnangagwa, has repeatedly committed himself to free, fair, and credible elections in an environment of peace and security. The President has also indicated that free and fair elections are critical in repositioning Zimbabwe as a democratic state within the community of nations. He has underscored the need to preach peace, because we know it is good for us, and we have no doubt that we have peaceful elections which we are going to deliver to the people of Zimbabwe and to the rest of the nation. Government therefore envisages receiving observers from SADC and its institutions, the African Union, and other organizations and country. And as a sign of goodwill and transparency, the President recently extended an open invitation to even the European Union and other countries that intend to observe our elections. As ambassadors, assure your host that the elections will meet the SADC and AU electoral guidelines. Government is fully aware that this will be its biggest test as the region. The continent and Western world, particularly will keenly scrutinize how these elections will be held. There is a common understanding that the country should live to its promise of delivering peaceful elections for the progressive good of the country. To avoid giving confusing signals to the outside world, government must speak with one consolidated voice on issues pertaining to these pending elections. And the mouthpiece outside Zimbabwe is none other than yourselves as ambassadors. Coming to the minister's mandate, the President's inaugural address laid out the foreign policy thrust that government has adopted, as well as the roadmap for tackling key obstacles that have previously hindered our efforts to maximize our national interests. In this regard, the ministry is expected to play a pivotal role in sprucing up Zimbabwe's image and to bring to an end the era of combative and counterproductive diplomacy. In addition, the ministry is expected to assure, build, and enhance mutually beneficial relations with our neighbors, AU countries and friendly countries that have stood with us during our turbulent times. The ministry has been tasked by the President and government to spearhead rapprochement and re-engagement, particularly with the Western world and the Bretton Woods institutions, and to facilitate our rehabilitation into the sinews of the global economy. Another main pillar of our mandate is to attract foreign direct investment, to promote external trade and source markets for our products and services, including tourism. Equally important is the need to engage the Zimbabwean diaspora to harness its multifaceted potential to contribute meaningfully to the development of the country. It is pertinent to observe that all these bedrock tasks are explicitly articulated in the ministry's mission statement, which is to promote the political and economic interest, image, and influence of the Republic of Zimbabwe in the international community and to protect the interests and safety of Zimbabwean nationals abroad. We are the ministry which is charged with the management. I always say the total management of the external environment. Through yourselves, excellencies, it is critical that we must get the control of the external environment fully on behalf of this government and on behalf of the people of Zimbabwe. The above tasks are an integral part of the ministry's 100-day plan, which was approved by cabinet. And the government has adopted the rapid results approach for the execution of his 100-day plan in order to expedite the achievement of intended outcomes within this short space of time. And remember, when you talk about the 100-day, it is a control management model. It is going to be rolled over after the end of the current 100 days. So it's going to be a continuous 100-day period in order to assess the achievement of this ministry and therefore the achievement of your mission in particular. You must account for what you have achieved in as far as making friends, making clear the statement and the position of Zimbabwe, attracting FDI from the countries in which you are accredited to, creating markets for products and investment opportunities, and above all, to ensure that you drive tourists into this country. But don't forget that our people are scattered all over, and therefore we have an obligation to mobilize them so that they can be part and parcel of the construction and the rebuilding of this country. This agency, therefore, requires a new mindset and an end to the lackadaisical era marked by the business as usual attitude. We are now working within the context of a standardized and structured process to achieve tangible and measurable results over a period of 100 days cycles, with the performance being reviewed on a weekly basis so that we can see what we are achieving. And this does not necessarily affect you as the ambassadors who are manning the missions, but it also concerns the head office in as far as their response capability and their ease of doing business. We must be reacting to issues, not in days, but in hours. You are an integral part, therefore, of this process, and we will monitor your performance on the basis of set targets and tangible outputs. Ambassadors, strengthening relations with the region is a very important target. As you are aware, the spatial radiation of Zimbabwe's foreign policy is in 3 concentric cycles, which is normally the immediate geographic region within which the country is situated. Southern Africa, the African continent as a whole, and the international community at large. And in tandem with this political reality, in the past few weeks, His Excellency the President has visited some of our neighbors, namely South Africa, Angola, Namibia, Mozambique, and Zambia, He undertook these visits as part of a broader diplomatic initiative to appraise his counterparts on developments in the country since his ascendance to the presidency of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Furthermore, he assured them of Zimbabwe's commitment to mutually beneficial relationships and good neighborliness. And next week, His Excellency the President is scheduled to visit Botswana to pursue the same agenda. And this, for the first time, is going to be a state visit to Botswana. Zimbabwe, as a founding member of our regional grouping, SADC, fully subscribes to its developmental agenda and ideals. The country is also an active member of SADC organ, as you know, on politics, defense, and security cooperation, which was primarily established as a mechanism for conflict prevention, management, and resolution. The situation which happened here in Zimbabwe, to describe the transition in Zimbabwe, was more of a conflict prevention, which prevented a situation degenerating into a conflict situation which was going to totally eradicate this country to the dogs. They always say it is cheaper to prevent conflict than to manage it or resolve it, or even to be involved in the DDR processes. So what was done was cheaper, whether you apply it from an economic principle or from a political dimension. As an indication of our new thrust in our diplomacy, the President met with the business community and the diasporians domiciled in each country that he visited. This clearly marks a shift from the traditional political and representative diplomacy to active economic diplomacy. Strengthening bilateral relations with other African countries, it is emphasized that beyond the mundane duties of strengthening political, socio-economic, cultural, and scientific and technical cooperation with the rest of African countries, we shall now deliberately be focusing our efforts on economic cooperation meant to promote robust trade, tourism, and the search for markets for our products and services within the region, SADC, COMESA, and the rest of Africa. The Ministry will embark on various activities to promote bilateral ties through exchange visits, holding consultations, and joint commissions to further unlock economic opportunities that exist within the African continent. A new element in our drive to enhance economic cooperation will be the inclusion of our business and diasporan communities in these new initiatives. You are therefore directed to identify and factor these vital assets in your countries of posting so that they become part of our new agenda or economic agenda. Furthermore, government intends to strengthen its bilateral relations with the key Asian and the BRICS countries, especially China, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia, and Brazil, through exchange of visits, joint commissions, and cooperation in various economic endeavors. As part of this diplomatic strategy, outbound visits at the highest level are planned to China, Russia, and India to reaffirm our commitment to continued cooperation, friendship, and solidarity. Ambassadors, the re-engagement efforts are a key component of the government's Minister's 100-day plan. The main objective of the re-engagement process is primarily to normalize the country's relations with the West. The intention is to end Zimbabwe's estrangement with the hitherto hostile nations and reopen lines of communication at the highest political level to ensure the removal of sanctions and other impediments to the sustenance of normal and friendly relations. And this would propel the country onto a trajectory of sustainable economic growth, underpinned by full diplomatic rehabilitation into the community of nations. You recall that even the East, sometimes when they do a due diligence on African continents, even on Zimbabwe, they look at the disposition and the third-party endorsement which comes from other countries, particularly from the West, before they can come up with a country risk assessment, which normally is a cost to this country.
Here we go again.
Enjoy world-class radio online. ZFM Stereo is available on TuneIn. Search for ZFM Stereo and you got it. It's ZFM Stereo Talk.
Honorable Esau Mupfumi, we are always moaning about the state of our roads.
The reason why the government decided to take over the collection of license fees, our councils mostly they are corrupt. I'm sorry to say that, and that money meant for road repairs was being channeled towards payment of salaries and other things.
The talk that gets you talking. Mondays to Thursdays between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
Yes, just before the break, you heard the words of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, retired Lieutenant General S.B. Moyo, as he talked to all the country's ambassadors from their different postings, who have been summoned to the country from their different postings worldwide for a reorientation this week. And he touched on many pertinent issues. That was the first part of that discussion, or rather that address that he made to the ambassadors. And we're now going to go into the second part, but if you want to send in any comments, I've seen a couple of comments already which I'll read after his comments. Just send them to 0731 168 045. I've seen a couple of comments which we'll read right at the end of the show, and then also take part in the conversation on Twitter at ZFM Stereo, on Facebook, facebook.com/ZFM Stereo. Let's go back into that second section of that very important address from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, retired Lieutenant General S.B. Moyo.
News, lifestyle, charts, live radio, station highlights, and much more. Get it all on zfmstereo.co.zw.
The President and I have already started diplomatic engagements with key Western countries, and the response to date has been very encouraging. The United Kingdom has already dispatched 2 special envoys to Harare since the dawn of this new era. The latest visit took place last week on the 1st of February, and the President will soon send special envoys to key countries, not only the West, but even the East, to reassure of our commitment. And in the West, it will include the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Sweden, Italy, the Netherlands, Bulgaria, the USA, Canada, with unequivocal messages indicating the government's intention to bury the hatchet and normalize relations. You are expected to facilitate these government demarches and play the crucial role of being part midwives and coordinators of the whole re-engagement process in your countries of postings. Whilst the new dispensation generated a lot of goodwill towards Zimbabwe in the West, we note that most nations are cautious and have adopted a wait-and-see attitude, as they are not yet persuaded and convinced about the sustainability of the new reform thrust. There is no reverse in this current reform. The majority of some of these countries have declared that the most critical benchmark to the thawing of national relations is the holding of free and fair and credible elections. It is clear, therefore, that the re-engagement process will require confidence-building measures at its inception, intended to send the right signals on our sincerity to engage in decent politics, pursue economic policies that will restore macroeconomic stability, and provide assurances on government's intentions to meet its international obligations. As we aspire to have cordial and mutually beneficial relations with all members of the international community, the Ministry intends to address diligently all the challenges that may arise in achieving this onerous national task that will be critical in determining the country's fortunes. It is only fair that Zimbabwe should be given space and an opportunity to work and collaborate in peace and harmony with other countries in pursuit of its national interests. It does not matter what members of this nation's political affiliations are, but what we are preaching is that when it comes to national interest, the variabilities in terms of political contestations and even issues to do with competition should be set aside and prioritize national interest in as far as this country is concerned. Zimbabwe has entered an era of active transformative diplomacy anchored on national economic interests that prioritizes the pursuit of productive economic and trade relations at bilateral and multilateral levels. And in this regard, at Davos last month, the President took full advantage of the forum to articulate Zimbabwe's position on diplomatic re-engagement, business and investment-friendly posture and commitment, and to democratize consolidation through peaceful, transparent, and credible elections in all its private and public engagements. His clear messages resonated well with the corridors of Davos and ignited a new enthusiasm on Zimbabwe's potential as a business and investment destination. Several business magnates across the economic spectrum, encompassing such fields as energy, tourism, and hospitality, agriculture, and many others, indicated their intention to visit Zimbabwe and explore business opportunities. Among us, entrepreneurs and investors whom the President met in Davos were many, who included Nestle and the Investment Corporation of Dubai, the $200 billion Sovereign Wealth Fund of Dubai, which already has presence here in our country, and many others. You have a key role to mobilize potential investors across the divide. Hence, you must continue to diligently market the country as a favorable and competitive destination for investors and tourists. Our economic diplomacy must be versatile and ride on the successes and accomplishments of the past, and be responsive to new stimuli and discard archaic and non-productive methods and practices where necessary. As you are all aware, the ministry has been reconfigured to include the international trade portfolio so as to reflect the priorities of our new political dispensation that gives prominence to economic and trade diplomacy. In this regard, the ministry and our missions abroad must follow suit and vigorously pursue the implementation of the new mandate. Currently, efforts are underway to create a conducive environment to attract significant and sustained flows of FDI. And under the new dispensation, government is determined to protect all foreign investments, including those under the bilateral investment protection and agreements. And the government has resolved to address actually all BIPAS violations and to compensate all those whose farms were affected by the land reform. But of course, considering that it cannot be an event, but it will be a process which would be dependent upon the availability of resources. It is one of the major issues which we've implored our erstwhile colleagues that we still are open to support, to receive the support in order to be able to compensate the farmers whose properties were destabilized as a result of the inevitable land reform program. In the same vein, you are all aware that government is introducing measures to improve the business climate through the Ease of Doing Business project under the auspices of the Office of the President and Cabinet. Amendments have already been made to the Indigenization and Economic Empowerment Act. The amendments indicate that all sectors of the economy are accessible and open to foreign investors, except for the diamond and platinum sectors. For the unfavorable 51-49% foreign investor regime has been duly revisited. Government is currently working towards value addition and the beneficiation of our raw materials in order to produce competitive products that increase earnings in foreign currency and create jobs for our people. We expect ambassadors to contribute meaningfully to the policy formulations in our country by contributing to the various policies. Like when we were in Addis Ababa, we realized that their ease of doing business is actually in hours, not in days, not weeks, not months. But they benchmark their efficiency in hours. And we are saying this is the benchmark which we want to use. And we are expecting each and every one of you to contribute in that regard. It is important that you have a clear also diaspora strategy at your missions, aimed at identifying, databasing, and actually even encouraging Zimbabweans in the diaspora to invest back home and to also reattract skills that have been perfected elsewhere in order to help in the development of the country. We have to ensure that the full potential of our nationals abroad is marshaled so that they contribute to the economic recovery of their homeland. The appetite of a lot of our people whom we met when we visited out with His Excellency is amazing and must be mobilized so that their networks can be fully utilized in order to contribute to the meaningful reconstruction of the country. In all the visits the President has undertaken in the region, as well as even in Switzerland and Ethiopia, he has met our diasporians who have shown keen interest in contributing to the development of their motherland and to render assistance in exploring business opportunities in their host countries. Remember, our diasporians are the first ambassadors before yourselves. What they say in a bar or in their corporates, or what they say about this country is what is considered as third-party endorsement, which is more persuasive than what you as His Excellency or Her Excellency says. Ambassadors, you therefore have an obligation to identify and engage the skilled diasporians in your host countries and assist them in finding the right investment back home. I also urge you to provide them with comprehensive consular services they seek at your missions. Let the consular services not be too expensive and overcharged, as I hear what is happening in other countries. I will not mention which ones. But it is critical that we must facilitate. There are some who have overstayed in the diaspora, and are saying there is something separate from ease of doing business. But the ease of being a Zimbabwean is actually becoming more difficult because of the impediments which probably some of us are putting as stringent regulations and the cost build-ups towards that particular process. Some of them have got their kids who are born outside, but they want their kids to be Zimbabweans. We must facilitate this. We can't let our own people totally be stateless at the end of the day. So it is therefore your duty to alert them even the dangers of human trafficking which might face them, and the drug trafficking as well as other ills that entrap the diasporans. His Excellency the President's maiden participation at the recent AU summit was well received. He appraised his colleagues on Zimbabwe's peaceful transition as well as his vision for the future. He also thanked SADC and the African Union for their principled support for the new dispensation in Zimbabwe. The Assembly applauded the President's address, and in particular his unequivocal assurance that Zimbabwe's founding father and former President Comrade R.G. Mugabe was safe and doing well, and that his administration continues to guarantee safety and welfare as well as that of his family. Zimbabwe was commended for its peaceful and orderly transition that was credited to its strong and viable governance institutions. In fact, it was singularly congratulated among the other three countries, Kenya and Liberia, for a country which possesses strong institutions which are able to identify own problems, develop and own solutions, implement those solutions peacefully, and prevent catastrophic conflict. So it was, in actual fact, congratulated for having very strong institutions in this regard. In recognition of the country's contribution towards peace and security on the African continent, Zimbabwe was amongst the 10 countries elected to the 15-member African Union Peace and Security Council. So this year, Zimbabwe will serve for the next 2 years, in fact. Will serve on the council for the next 2 years, 2018 to 2019, and up to 2020. This elevation is important considering that the council has the mammoth task of setting the peace and security agenda of the continent. Government will also continue to contribute towards promoting peace and security on the continent through material assistance and seconding personnel to the AU, UN peacekeeping missions. It is critical as ambassadors that we must fight for our own people to occupy various positions in the international organizations which are veiled by them. We have got the skills, we've got the skilled personnel. There is no reason whatsoever why we cannot export these skills for the benefit of the country. Government is committed to playing an active role towards the realization of the AU's goals and objectives. We will actively support efforts by the African Union to promote peace and development on the continent through the Agenda 2063. Zimbabwe associates itself with the common political values and systems enshrined in the African Union Constitutive Act, as well as measures being crafted and implemented by the organization in an effort to enhance development and prosperity on the continent. At the multilateral level, the UN has also welcomed the new dispensation in the country and applauded the people of Zimbabwe for a peaceful transition and a new leadership for the country. The United Nations has expressed its willingness to continue to render support to the country under the Zimbabwe UN Development Framework, ZUNDAF. Needless to say, the UN is an important development partner for the country. Zimbabwe fully subscribes to the UN's founding principles and charter and supports the maintenance and international peace and security, economic and social development, friendly relations among nations, and international cooperation, peaceful coexistence, and the pursuit of common objectives. It will continue to be an active member of the United Nations, including all its associate bodies. Furthermore, at the multilateral level, we will continue to caucus with like-minded countries by forging solidarity and cohesion through organizations such as the Non-Aligned Movement and promoting the South-South cooperation through the Group of 77 and China, with the overall goal of promoting development, international solidarity, peace and security in the global village. Yes, it is Zimbabwe's intention to rejoin the Commonwealth. However, you will recall the process of extracting ourselves out of the Commonwealth was as a result of the demand by our people to do so. It is therefore critical that the same mandate has to come from our people. Otherwise, it is not the intention of the leadership just to walk into the Commonwealth, leaving the people outside. So I thought this matter must be clear. It is not, we are not averse to joining the Commonwealth, and it is actually on the table. And a particular message has been communicated. The increase in complexity and the globalization in the political, economic, social, and environmental fields demand we adopt a new versatile posture in response to this unfolding and unpredictable vagaries manifesting in your countries of accreditation, and profoundly assess their impact on Zimbabwe, the region, and the continent as a whole. We have a responsibility to succinctly articulate Zimbabwe's positions and concerns on various issues at international fora, and fearlessly promote and protect the national interest at all times. To that end, there are a number of topical issues on the global agenda that you must be fully conversant with. These diverse issues include the new Global Development Agenda, Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030, poverty eradication, international trade, health issues, human rights, the environmental and climate change, migration, international peace and security, reform of the United Nations, its Security Council, the Bretton Woods institutions, and terrorism. These issues are critical to us as they impact on our own country, the region, and the continent, and at the international community level. Our responses to these challenges obviously will be informed by the judicious collaboration of national, regional, and international interests for the general well-being of mankind. The determination of the hierarchy of interests on any issue under consideration will always be anchored on the national interest. Advancing Zimbabwe's national interest is a task for us all, and it requires a regular exchange of views, information, and intelligence between Harare and its diplomatic stations in order to strengthen our unit of purpose and ensure a viable structural framework for the implementation of our foreign policy. The ministry is working at devising effective ways and the means of improving inter-ministry communication at home and abroad. We are aware of challenges in this regard, as the government internet service provider is currently challenged in its functions. A representative will address you on this issue. We want to take this matter to finality so that it can be solved once and for all. Indeed, relevant authorities have been engaged to ensure secure, timeous, and reliable communication channels for regular correspondence, as this impacts directly on the efficacy of our operation. Ambassadors, in conclusion, permit me to emphasize to you as our esteemed representatives abroad that your hallowed duty is to serve diligently the Republic, mindful of the ministry's new mandate. Indeed, it cannot be business as usual. Our ethos should be result-based and guide us in attaining tangible results through effective and efficient diplomatic operations. I acknowledge the point that there are limited resources at your disposal, but I urge you all to be innovative and proactive. The clarion call is for all of us to think outside the box, basically.
To all you Twitter heads, connect with ZFM Stereo on twitter.com/ZFM Stereo /ZFM Stereo.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
So that's it from, of course, that amazing address, this great address from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, retired Lieutenant General S.P. Moyo, as he spoke to the country's ambassadors who he had summoned from all over the world for Reontario Week that's happening this week. I'll be giving you more details about what else is happening throughout that week, but just wanted to read some of your messages, your responses as that address was being given. First of all, Catherine Chuma in Nyamandlovu says, isn't the East going to sabotage us as Zimbabwe, since it has been playing games with the targeted criminals surrounding the former president? Let's look at 23 hours a day and 1 hour east for progress sake. Thank you very much for getting in touch. I'm going to read from Frank from Norton. Says the address of the foreign minister sounds so presidential. Says, with such a gem of a foreign policy, the whole world should be licking from our palms pretty soon, I tell you. Thumbs up to him. I've got another message here. Says SB sounds, this is Mirius from KK, who says SB sounds sweet like sugar, but all talks need implementation, and competition will not end as there is a game to be played as the term expires. Reading another message here, says Frank, already read that from Frank. You also got Mandla Mpofu Nyamandlovu with another message from there. Thank you very much for getting it. Says, I would like to applaud the Honorable Sibusiso Moyo's speech. It's 100% democratic and will lure a lot of electorates to a new and reformed ZANU-PF, including me. Can we therefore expect actions and applications of all promised issues as per your say, Comrade Sibusiso Moyo? If these issues raised, tabled and concluded, then we are likely to have the best government in the continent. Please keep the promise, period. And then we got a message here. I didn't write your name, but it's a very good message. It says, we're the cusp of a new economic order indeed, but the beneficiaries, if we do not play our cards right, will be the big foreign businesses at the expense of locals. We need smart partnerships. My own opinion is that it will take at least 2 years to get settled. Capital equipment from overseas, especially in mining, takes 2 years to complete. It says, if our parliament does not deal with the archaic mining and mineral laws, foreigners will be the benefactors. Up till today, Parliament hasn't fully dealt with this issue. Our railway system is in shambles, at least at best. If we do not revamp it in the next couple of months, no meaningful progress will take place. The colonialists knew this. We need transparency at all institutions and proper independent audits. The future is in our hands, and that is a message that is there. I'd like to thank all of you for getting in touch with us throughout the program. Just reading one last message here. A couple of ones come. It says, I like Comrade Moyo. He's very confidential. Tulani Mtetwa, who is at Tongogara Barracks. He says, just looking for someone says, is it not possible for Zimbabwe to have diplomatic relationships not only with the Palestinians? It says Frank from Norton. It says, we're just looking at some more messages here. Okay, it seems as if I'm trying to load that. But I mean, a lot of the messages applauding that are addressed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, retired Lieutenant General S.B. Moyo. Now, just note that the reorientation workshop is running until the end of the week. Finance Minister Patrick Chinamasa and Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe Governor Dr. John Mangudya are set to address the gathering tomorrow morning. And just as a reminder, there's a gathering of all ministers, or not ministers, but rather the country's ambassadors who have been summoned by the minister from their different postings worldwide for a reorientation this week. Yeah, that's it for me. I'll be back with you tomorrow between 8:30 and 9 p.m. on what is called Health Matters. Other than that, I say take care of yourself and the people that you love. Coming up after, in just from 5:30 until the top of the hour, is Chilla with Our Story. It's ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. My name is Larry Kwirirayi, and as I say all the time before I go, where I come from, Asiri siyasebenza. Take care of yourself.
Connect with ZFM Stereo via Facebook on facebook.com/Z